What's up, people that play War of the Visions? Today we're going to look at More the Merrier because it's a new year, probably. And maybe you pulled for Jayden and maybe you think this is my chance to really assemble my wind team. So let's take a look and see if this is still a good time to pull for her. All right, so I will say that I am talking into a new microphone and that I might sound different and that might scare you, but don't worry, it's just a different microphone. I'm still kind of working out how it sounds, so that might be changing in the videos to come. But besides that, we just need to talk about more because she's a pretty good unit even now, and she came out a little while ago. And when she came out, the thing that I was so excited about her was that she had high accuracy and could deal with the light meta, which is kind of funny to think about because it was a long meta, but it's gone now, right? Like, we're not nearly as worried about Elena and Locke as we used to be, and it's not really the problem that Moore's looking to solve. So what is she really for at this point? To be honest, it's to pair with some other pretty good wind units. So for example, with Jayden, they both have missile magic based attacks. And if you have someone to round them out like a tank like Joom, then you've got yourself a really great team. So I'm just going to say right off the bat that she hasn't dipped like a lot of units might have by this time in their life. She's still looking pretty good, and specifically is seen some play in this limited guild battle. And if you did pull for Jayden and you do already have Joom, but you need to fill out your win team, then this is going to be a really easy way for players to start building that. So like a brand new player that like pulled Jayden could probably pull her and then hope for a Joom rerun, or build Dario, and that'll be fine for a long time for a new player. For an experienced player, it's going to be a little bit different because it really depends on some of the stuff coming up, because this, at the end of the day, it is a trap banner, right? Because we have Final Fantasy 13. We have Final Fantasy Tactics. Those are coming up in a few weeks if we hold to the JP schedule. First, we're going to have Mashery, then we're going to have her VC. And then, so that's 3 weeks from now, we'll be doing Final Fantasy 13 Part 1. There'll be Lightning, Hope, and their 2 VCs. And then Part 2 comes the week after with Snow and his VC, but also with the full FFT, collaboration. And then Glaciella. So it's really, there's a lot coming on in a few weeks here in War of the Visions. So this is a very difficult sell for people that have been saving very carefully. If you didn't know, I actually have More the Merrier, and I have used her to great effect during the light meta. I don't use her as often now, but the main reason that I don't is that I just don't have a strong wind team. I have Varouche, and actually the two of them together were very powerful for a while, but I don't have like a Joom basically to lock down the team, and it's really cramping my style, to be honest. But I'll tell you what I can about this unit because I do have first-hand experience using her. Now, first of all, this TMR is a very strong TMR because it gives shell to possibly your entire team. So that's really good. The critical evasion is also a bonus. There's just one caveat here because it is a 2-use skill, and we do love that. But it only has like this range height, AoE height 1, and that basically means that some maps it's very difficult to set up, and it's kind of annoying. But at the same time, most maps, it works out quite well. It's a great TMR, highly recommend. In terms of stats, Moore has really good stats. The only 2 problem areas are, one, her AP, and her vision card does address this a little bit. You don't even need it, to be honest, if you have other acquired AP up. If you have, you don't want her using bells because her TP skills are so good. But basically, I haven't found AP to be that much of a problem. Her 120 skill gives her an auto restore as well, so that can also be used to help her out a little bit. Her accuracy is quite high, as I said, and there's multiple ways to boost that within her kit. But the other problem area to look at is the fact that she has 61 agility. Now, she has a passive that does increase her magic and her agility. However, when you use that passive, you're also going to be using the spirit penetration one, and it means that you don't have the poison chance up one, which is actually really good. And I actually at times would take the agility passive off of her so that I could have that increase poison up because of, the meta at the time called for it. And it's just something to keep in mind that she is on the slower side of units. Let's do a very quick glance over on her her kit to just highlight some things that are kind of important. So like I said, that she has this sleep and poison chance increase here, the toxins and sedatives. You want to use that often, but then you miss out on thriving mentality at the top here, where you get magic and agility. So at the end of the day, the basic setup is that you use thriving mentality and sharp mind for the spirit penetration, the accuracy, all this stuff. But sometimes there are appropriate places to use toxins and sedatives. Otherwise, her skills are all split up between missile magic damage or just straight up magic damage. But two of the most important parts of her kit are actually these two upgraded areas. So good health and happiness is a 20 defense and spirit buff for teammates and herself, as well as a regen for herself. And she buffs her own healing power so she can actually regen to full very easily. And this is actually a very important guild battle skill because it has 3 uses, and because she can use this on a tank, and that tank can suddenly take a lot more damage, and it's a really big deal. The thing is, you have to set up your team properly so that she doesn't get stuck using this. You want her to use it the one time, hit your allies, and then move on to Life of Longevity and Prosperity, because this is her re-raise skill. It's a 40% magic buff, it's a 30% accuracy buff, and it's a 30% healing power buff. So if you have all of these things active, because they have to be active while re-raise is active, she becomes even more dangerous. So you'd really like her to use good health and happiness and Life of Longevity and Prosperity in a row and then go into battle. And that's why you can't really have like something like bells on her, and she might not use her own TMR. Now there are matchups where you actually might not even use good health and happiness because your tank doesn't need it. Your tank can do their job by themselves, and that way you can go straight into Life of Longevity and Prosperity and maybe something else that you want to buff with. But a lot of times, for example, in limited guilds battle, this buff on a Dario, who's your undercost tank, is going to really get you a lot of value, especially if you don't have Jum and you don't have her TMR, which gives defense and spirit. But let's face it, a lot of you are in wind, which means you already have Jum and you already have her TMR. So there's less of a case for this Life of Longevity. But for me, good health and happiness. But for me, it's been a very valuable skill. So while we're still talking about buffs, she also has the Time Mage sub, and this is important because she has Haste and Quicken, and I actually have used this sub to some pretty, good results, especially on maps where re-raise is not is disabled. Then you're not going to be using her Life of Longevity anyway, so you might as well slap the Time Mage sub on, and all of a sudden she's using the defense spirit buff on your team, and then she's hasting everybody while she goes forward to attack, and it's pretty effective because haste is a game changer. So I definitely recommend trying this out, although if you're using those 2 other buffs, then that takes precedence over her being a Time Mage, but it gives you a really nice manual option as well. I'm not going to talk very long about her attacks, but basically you have skills that have chance to inflict poison, and you have skills that have chances to put someone to sleep or to inflict poison again, or to silence people with her limit burst, which is super effective against a lot of different targets. So these are all things that you want to consider with your offs and ons. For example, the Soul Sedation is a very high chance to put someone to sleep, and the only downside to that is how low the range is compared to some of her other attacks. So if you do want to adjust AI, you can actually set her up to get regen or auto restore, and then go put someone to sleep pretty quickly. On the other end of things, you might want to use Divine Toxicology for the AoE, and maybe you have the Toxins and Sedatives passive on, so all of a sudden you have this huge chance, I think it's 45% base chance, to inflict poison on an enemy, which then breaks them by 30 defense and 30 spirit, and it's a pretty impactful debuff to put on another unit. So there is some playing around with on and offs, and it depends on who you're targeting. So for example, if you're targeting Locke and Elena, then you might have the Divine Toxicology as one of your main strategies to try to get poison on them to get rid of their courage and their re-raise. However, you might not be using that Toxins and Sedatives passive because those 2 units are so fast that you kind of want to keep up with them too. So you might have to be using your Thriving Mentality to get the agility boost. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that Moore isn't a very basic unit. She actually does require quite a bit of testing per the map and per the units that you're trying to use her against. But at at the end of the day, that's a good problem to have, and she's a really flexible unit. Moore's Limit Burst is probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest deal on her kit, just because it has that 67% chance to silence. If you hit any of the Jaydens, if you hit Sellas, if you hit Elena, then they just can't use their skills anymore. Silence cancels any magic-based skill, so it really shuts down like just a ton of units. So it's something you should highly consider, setting up with her to, first of all, raise the level of it so the damage is higher. Yes, that doesn't change the chance to silence, but it does affect her ability to use it because she's going to use skills that deal lots of damage. So definitely consider that. And then it has that added bonus of decreasing their AoE resistance afterwards. But really, the silence here is what's truly important. So just to summarize my thoughts from the beginning, I think that new players dipping into Wind here, going into Jayden, and now they want to keep adding to it, then Moore is going to be a good choice because you're also going to down the line get Glaciella. We're going to get a 70 cost Wind Archer later on as well, Charisse. So there's lots more Wind to come, and at some point when the Warrior of the Crystal banner comes back, you're definitely going to want to pull for Jum. Again, this is all considering you're a new player and you're trying to break into an element and make it one of your stronger elements. If you are an established Wind player, you know exactly what you need, and if you missed out on her the first time and you feel like you've lost out because you could have been using her this whole time, don't think that you're just overcorrecting now and she's not necessary. She is still very good and can be used in high level parties, so I would still recommend her to players to this day. What it ends up coming down to is what are your FF13 plans and what are your Glaciella Revolution plans, because she comes right after FF13. But that is a lot of time. So for example, if you have no interest in FF13 and if you have no interest in FFT, then you actually could just pull for more and save, and you'd be fine to pull for the Wind Glaciella anyway. But if you do want those collab units, then you're kind of in a tougher spot, and this is definitely a trap banner. But that's going to be it from me, and I hope that you enjoyed the video and the sound of my voice on this new mic. Wow, you sound pretty good, Mysidia. Otherwise, I was kind of hoping for a surprise fire unit this week for some reason. It didn't happen. I was hoping for a War of the Visions unit in FFBE, the other game I play. It didn't happen. So really, I'm just sitting here saving in both games with way too much currency, and I want to spend it. So I just can't wait for the Final Fantasy 13 collab because I'm pulling for Lightning, and I'm pulling for her VC too.